Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about Anime and Catholicism as usual. That's what my channel is called. And today is actually going to be my first official Anime and Catholicism breakdown episode, I guess you could call these, because we are going to be doing a lot of these, breaking down some things that are not necessarily talked about by the Catholic community as much. And so I would like to share my personal experience and expertise, I guess, with these, considering that I have been an avid anime fan for pretty much before I was Catholic, and it really kind of actually led me to Catholicism in a lot of ways, but I will save that for a separate video probably. But today's topic is going to be about anime and also AI artwork. So this is pretty much about the morality of art as it relates to the Catholic Church, and also just in general, I guess you could take away stuff from this as well. So pretty much famous artwork. There's a lot of famous artwork out there that pretty much everybody knows about. Top right, well, I guess I can get a laser pointer. I'm kind of dumb with this, but laser pointer, here we go. So laser pointer, there we go. There's Starry Night. I'm still kind of new to this, but there's Starry Night up here. There's Mona Lisa in the middle. That's the David statue. I didn't include the lower half for specific reasons, just because, yeah, that would probably get me flagged on YouTube really fast. But this is also a Picasso painting right here. So art is not necessarily just set to things that are considered completely natural. You can also have like abstract stuff, but even this is considered a naturalistic painting, considering that it focuses around a human as well as just geometric shapes that happen in nature. I do not know. There we go. Next. So, Catholic art. You've probably seen a lot of Catholic art as well, considering that that's where actually most of the art comes from. Like the Mona Lisa is actually a Da Vinci painting, and so that's the same as the Last Supper up here, which is basically depicting Jesus and the 12 apostles, basically at the Last Supper. Very famous artworks right here. This one up here is also the Piety, I think. Pieta or something is how it's pronounced, I believe. And this is basically Mary holding the just crucified Jesus right there. And so basically we have a quote from St. John Paul II down here. So humanity in every age and even today looks to works of art to shed light upon its path and its destiny. So that is very key when it comes to what art's kind of actual purpose is. There's also a CCC quote right here, Catechism of the Catholic Church 2501. It's basically a form of practical wisdom, uniting knowledge and skill to give form to the truth of reality in a language accessible to sight or hearing. So it's pretty much inspired by truth and love of beings. It has a certain likeness to God's activity in what he has created. So basically the act of creating art is also linked to that form of expression that we were actually created with. And art is not an absolute end in and of itself, so basically that means that art can be interpreted in multiple ways, kind of, I guess you could say. Like, art can't be pinned down as one specific thing all the time, and we'll get into some of that kind of later. But it is basically ordered and ennobled by the ultimate end of man. So pretty much just as art can be, I guess you could say, imperfect in a lot of ways, that imperfection is actually what is shown through in a lot of art, but it also leads to the true perfectness that is basically creation in and of itself. So next. So basically, we are what we consume. As you can see right here, Matthew 5:28, King James Version, because that's the version I kind of use a whole lot, just because I like the translations based off a pretty good translation and traditional translation of the Bible. But I say to you that whoever looketh at a woman with lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. This is a quote basically from Jesus Christ, saying that, yeah, like if you're looking with the intent of lust, basically, that is going to lead you to commit adultery, and you've basically already committed it in your heart, is how that is. It also is a kind of mercy kind of quote in a lot of cases, because it's kind of saying that, like, yeah, this is a problem, and just because you're human, you can't necessarily say that's a problem, so you should turn your eyes towards me more so. And lust, according to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, is a disordered desire for inordinate enjoyment of sexual pleasure. Sexual pleasure is morally disordered when sought for itself, isolated from its procreative and unitive processes. So basically, it's like, if it's completely just about all the pleasure, be that any form of, self something or others. I'm not going to really go into too much detail, but you know what I'm saying pretty much as we get further into this. So pretty much all of that is what lust pretty much is. It's like a twisting of what is natural, I guess you could say. So that is getting into anime as the topic, so hand-drawn excellence. I wanted to start this off with some of my favorite artworks and also favorite artists. So we're going to basically start with that, as well as talking about anime in general as we go along. So since this is mostly about art, I am focusing on the artwork. And as you can see, these are very visually pleasing artworks. They've had lots of time and dedication put into them, getting like the physical aspects either correct or almost correct, because this arm looks a little bit weird in my opinion, but very, very good. You can do all sorts of things with lighting, that kind of stuff. It just really kind of lets more so natural beauty shine, I guess you could say. And so yeah, these are some of my favorite artists. I think these three right here are actually from an artist called Bloom on Twitter. I probably will forget to link actual links to a lot of these. I'm actually not sure about this middle one, because it's been so long since I've actually saved this one, and I'm kind of I have forgetful memory. This bottom one right here is actually a popular Fate artist that does a whole lot of Fate character drawings as well. So very, very nice. As you can tell, these are very nice artworks. And here are more examples of artwork as well. This one over here, as you can see, there is a signature, so it's from Shea. One of the artists that I actually do like how they stylize everything. As you can see, it's very stylized, kind of very stylized as well. This middle one is from Kosake, another popular Fate drawing artist that does a whole lot of Fate stuff. A lot of Fate characters, very high quality art, as you can tell. More so focusing on like a hyper-realistic version of, well, not realistic, but hyper-detailed versions of Fate characters, pretty much. This top one up here, I forget who is the art drawer as well. Drawer isn't even a word. But this is basically Fate as well. This is Saber Alter from Fate. One of my favorite characters of all time, just aesthetically and also character-wise pretty good. And this on the bottom is Lelouch, also by Bloom. And yeah, Lelouch is pretty good character. And yeah, so basically, as I'm presenting these artworks to you, you can kind of tell that yes, they are ordered in a way that is basically ordering itself towards what is naturally like appealing, but also not like just completely designed for just pleasure by itself and for no other reason except pleasure by itself. So that's gonna get us into some of the more NSFW kind of stuff, I guess you could say. But this slide right here, I probably should have reordered this a little bit until like after, kind of to make more distinctions between stuff. So as you guys know, there is a lot of animes that have nudity in them in various ways, various aspects of that being used. One of those examples is Elfenlied. It's pretty much in every single episode, even in the opening has lots of nudity as well. But I would argue that it actually is leaning heavily on Latin, as in Roman kind of influences as well. So it basically falls into more of a category of like what you consider seeing from like Roman art, as well as the themes in the opening are presented in certain ways. So it's very good, as well as the way it's actually used in the show. It's not for just arousing you and that kind of stuff is what that's pretty much for. Same thing with Evangelion series. There's a lot of nudity in that occasionally. but it's not really for that purpose. It's mainly just for the purpose of just expressing the just natural beauty, I guess you can say, stuff like that. The Garden of Sinners is literally my favorite anime series. It's from like Type Moon. This has a actual like full-on rape scene, if you know what that means, and in like literally the third movie. But is a very dark and distressing kind of scene. Like it's supposed to be like very realistically off-putting, and you're basically supposed to feel pity and stuff. It's not really for the purpose of sex rather than for pleasure and stuff. So that's pretty much how that is. So it really depends on intent and context. So pretty much, if it's NSFW, you should avoid it as best as you can, but depending on the context that it's in, it really kind of changes it to be better. So this also gets us to a little question. Can you tell the difference? We're at the point now, and this is actually the reason why I have made this video more so, we're really at the point where you can't really tell the difference between hand-drawn and AI-generated stuff that well. And that's really just happened this year in 2023, I think in like March, or, well, not even March, it might have actually been the end of last year. Or like it was very early 2023. We went from pretty old quality AI art kind of stuff, just the very start of stuff, to pretty detailed stuff to where you can't even really tell the difference in a lot of cases, except for a very few like mistakes. But even those, it just kind of becomes like, oh yeah, like a human could make that kind of error as well. It really kind of depends on how you're looking for certain details, I guess you could say. I personally am not even sure on these myself when I was making this PowerPoint, because my folder literally has AI art and also just hand-drawn stuff mixed in together, and I don't like organize my artwork at all. But I'm pretty sure, as you can see, we're going to the next slide, AI image on this side, because this is more of a recent one that I saved, plus you can kind of tell it's a little bit AI just because of how many like kind of things there are right here. It looks kind of a little janky with all of the background stuff. The flowers can be kind of weird or like low quality, I guess you could say, but stylistically it is still very good and visually appealing art that is pretty I guess you could say passable as AI art. But when you get to hand-drawn as well, you can just get a lot more details. The lines are a little bit more natural, I guess you could say. Hand-drawn, you can see like slight stylistic designs right here, rather than over here where it's not as much stylistic, it's more so just like what it looks like on the outside, I guess you could say. But right here you can see like sort of like shadows from like the hair and that kind of stuff, which you wouldn't necessarily see in AI drawings as much, at least where we currently are. So that gets me to like what we had as old AR quality, which this is kind of what we were looking at like before the real AI revolution, I guess you could say, which honestly has really caused a lot of problems for me personally, because it's really kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily turned me away from just hand-drawn naturalistic art, but it really kind of is becoming a problem when it comes to perversion of what the actual intent and stuff is, just because stuff becomes like hypersexual a little bit and stuff like that. But these two characters are Jeanne d'Arc Alter from Fate series. I actually do have a separate video planned basically discussing Jeanne d'Arc and how she relates with Catholicism and also the Fate series. If you don't know what the Fate series is, they basically take a whole bunch of historical figures, plop them into their game, plop them into their universe, basically take inspiration from the initial person and create like a whole new character that is based on them, both giving, I would say, light to the original character, original person, but also kind of tweaking them in a lot of ways, not necessarily to make them better, but to basically create kind of a, I guess like I could say that I have an appreciation for Jeanne d'Arc because specifically of Fate's adaptation and depiction of Jeanne d'Arc. So it really is kind of a topic that I really want to dive heavily into. There's also Okita Soji from Fate as well, another historical character that they gender bent and whatnot, but yeah, that's besides the point. So that was old AI quality. But AIR now is actually getting to the point where it's starting to look a lot more hand-drawn. You can do a lot more hand-drawn stuff. For example, on the left right here, this is Echidna from ReZero, same thing with the middle one. But this first one is actually in the style of the ReZero anime more so, and as you can tell, like, it does look very close to the actual light novel anime kind of style of ReZero. And so really, because this is AI generated, you could just make a whole bunch of these, whole bunch of little poses, that kind of stuff. There actually are that kind of stuff being created and generated, I guess you could say. So really, when it comes to this stuff, it's not too bad, I would say. It actually has a pretty practical purpose in that sense, where you can get like a lot of just easy kind of stuff like this. And then when you get to the more detailed stuff, like where it's more stylistically designed, where this one is, I would argue, more on the sus side, just because of how it's presented, I guess you could say. But yes, it does depict Echidna as a very attractive lady sitting on the grass and stuff like that. But as you can tell, like, backgrounds are kind of wacky. There's hair disconnected right here. It's not actually connected, which is kind of odd if you think about it. But stylistically, yeah, I would consider this pretty cool. It was worth a save image, for me at least. And then we also have this on the right, which is Saber from Fate as well. As you can tell, I love Fate a lot. So yeah, the background on this looks very good for an AI generated image, partially because I think what it does is it generates a background like this, camera angle kind of thing. It generates a background, does whatever amount of detail you want with it, while still keeping with a style. We've also got Saber, pretty detailed, but it's still not quite exactly in like the anime style or something like that. This is more of just a, oh yeah, generated off of certain templates that get you to certain results. It's kind of what it is. So it's still pretty good, but not necessarily as good as you could get it if, let's say, an actual artist hand drew every single bit of this. Like, it would have so much more style and so much more everything, especially since you can kind of just pop like prompts into a AI generator and get results, which I wouldn't necessarily consider as high class of an art as if you actually hand drew everything like this and did more and personalized it more. So that gets us to more examples, and these are actually ones that fit closer to actual hand-drawn stuff, I would say. At least this center one, because this is actually Asuka from Evangelion. As you can tell, like, very stylistically drawn right here. But yeah, it's still AI generated. As you can tell with the hand right here, I have a little bit. But yeah, it's still AI generated image, but still very good. This one on the left is also Echidna, but also the image quality, as you'll notice, like the exact pixels aren't as detailed as well. Like, it pretty much just makes an image for a certain size, and that's about it. But yeah, this one I would say, this is actually what the AI generation revolution kind of did. It made, like, oh yeah, you can get super realistic shoulders, as you can see. That's why this image is so appealing, I would say. But yeah, so you can get realistically stuff, but there's still proportion issues. Like, as you can see, the arm exits right here, but it kind of curves down in a weird way. So it's not really actually as realistic. A real artist would have actually curved that out more, contoured this arm a little bit more, something like that. So really, it's like small details that can kind of get messed up at the moment. But it's also not quite to the point where, like, oh yeah, you could zoom into one little tiny spot and see a whole bunch of details. But now that brings me to this right photo, which is actually seen on from sort of online. Now, the reason why I personally am on the fence about the AI stuff is because, on the one hand, it does give you a lot more artwork and a lot more, like, stuff that you could use as, like, a background, for example, of like certain characters, but it does just give you a whole bunch of like the negative side effects, which is the over-sexualization type side of things. So instead of getting like great artwork, occasionally you're more so getting like great to like actual like poison artwork pretty much regularly. But on the other hand, it does give you a lot more character volume in terms of artwork for characters that wouldn't have gotten it. Basically, in point, Sinon from SAO and also Echidna from ReZero, they rarely would receive any sort of good quality art at all. So it's one of those things where it's like you kind of have to give and take. But now getting into sus examples, as you can see, I'm not really going to stay here too long just because, yeah, it's still very kind of tempting, I know you could say. These are ones I personally have in my folder as like examples of ones that I've saved in the past. Believe me, there's way more, plenty of NSFW stuff. This I would consider still considered like SFW, but kind of borderline more so. This top one, as you can see, definitely NSFW-ish, because as you can see, it's way too sexual for my taste, I guess you could say. Same thing with these other ones. The detail on this far right one is pretty impressive for AI. However, it is just a little bit too on the sexual side, you know. And these bottom ones, this one is like, oh yeah, it's very high quality, and but it's basically just putting a character in a situation just for the heck of it, for stimulating pleasure and that kind of stuff. That's pretty much what all of these are for. This one right here, it's starting to get into the obscene kind of section. This one's not too bad, but as you can tell, like, it's putting characters in places where they shouldn't be, which happens even with hand-drawn stuff, but really, you should avoid it if you're Catholic, and NSFW should be avoided at all costs. So basically, yeah, just like avoid it. There's so much of it out there because of how the whole AI stuff produces just so much of it, and it is going to look very visually appealing, as you can tell with like the detail and stuff, and the proportions are like overly stimulating, I guess you could say. It'll ruin you if you stay here too long. And now we get into realistic examples, because this is where stuff gets morally questionable, I guess you could say. So these people do not exist, and so this is just like one of the first ones I found on Pixab, basically. So it's just 5 people, and they all don't exist. They're all drawn basically to tempt you, pretty much, and you should avoid them because they're not real. They're not real. Same thing I would say for like Instagram people, like Instagram models and that kind of stuff. Like, you should just avoid them because they're pretty much not real almost. Which there's unique temptation issues with that, which I will get to in this next slide. As you can see, unique temptation issues, because you should avoid all of these. Even though they're fake, they can still tempt you uniquely. That's enough of that. So basically, the idea behind this is that, yeah, they're not real, so you might feel a sense of, oh, it's kind of safe if I do stuff because they're not real, but that's not how the world works. That's not how morality works. So you should avoid pretty much all of that stuff, I would recommend, because if you get tossed down that rabbit hole, it's really not good. It is definitely an offense to God because it's not ordered properly towards the glorification of God, I guess you could say. Like, yes, the female booty and the male body are also very beautiful, I guess you could say. But the thing about that is that really AI imagery is just for the sole purpose of basically creating something that you're going to be whacking off to. Is just how it blankly is, pretty much, which you should not be doing. And if you need help with this stuff, if you've been struggling with AI stuff, you should pray, first off. Talk to someone you trust. It doesn't really have to be a priest or anybody, but I would also recommend going to confession. Like, literally, you can just go to some random priest and pretty much confess it. And, yeah, like, it pretty much accomplishes the same thing, as long as you're going to confession with a full conscience that is repentant, I would say. So, really... But if you're, like, still in the stage where you're like, I don't see anything wrong with it. Like, even if you aren't Catholic, like, if you don't see anything wrong with, all these AI generated images that are overly stimulating, that kind of stuff, as well as if you are misusing just even art in general, pretty much. Like if yeah, like even if my like first examples or whatever are causing you to go down that path or whatever, or, it's not really helping you at all. In fact, it's kind of hurting you. Like you're not able to see the full beauty, I guess, of the artwork itself because you're reducing it to just what pleasure it can give you, pretty much. So that's what I would recommend. And let's see, next slide. Browser filters. This is also another very important thing that I should add in here at the end. I did try a browser filter for a long time. I'm not really going to name names here just because, yeah, I'm not sponsored yet. But, yeah, I pretty much used one of the mainline browser things that especially Catholics are recommended to use. You can probably figure out which one it is. It's supposed to be pretty advanced, and I would say it is pretty advanced. You can block websites, you can block other things, you can get your friends to monitor your stuff. It takes screenshots of your screen, and it tells you if they are problematic or not. But the problem with that is that it doesn't actually work for anime. At least yet, which, this is a major problem, especially because anime is honestly more tempting in a lot of cases into a lot of younger Catholics, I guess you could say, than actual real life women, which is part of the issue why we are going into a populational decline as well. But basically, all you can do in this situation is, yeah, like, start building practice resisting the temptation. That is what I would highly recommend to you all. I am still struggling with this currently. Not as so much as I was quite a while ago. Part of what can help with this is setting like goals for yourself. Like not necessarily goals as in, oh yeah, I'm gonna go a certain amount of days without doing anything. Because then your goal becomes focusing in on not doing something rather than focusing in on becoming something. So basically, I would frame this to where, like, oh yeah, you're trying to become a better person, better man, better woman, basically trying to become a better person, trying to reorder your life towards what is naturally good, basically reordering it towards God, and also reordering your whole life. What are your priorities, pretty much? If your priorities are just seeking what is going to give you pleasure, that's not necessarily the best thing. However, like, it's really kind of a thing where it's on an individual basis. Like, I can't really help you guys too much in this case just because I haven't, like, well, I'm still trying to overcome a lot of stuff myself, pretty much. But, yeah, I'm trying to give at least what I have found out by going through this journey. But, hope you guys enjoyed this. Remember to rely on Jesus to save you where you falter, because he is literally able to, he literally paid for your sins, pretty much. So, like, literally, wherever you have fallen, he has saved you. That is how it works. And thanks for your time. Please follow and share, especially since this is a very new channel. It really helps me a lot if you guys would share. That would really be very helpful, especially because this is really kind of a niche kind of that isn't actually being filled on YouTube, on Rumble, on anywhere else, even on like Facebook, Instagram. I'm very kind of hesitant to share this on Facebook, but I think I have a pretty good message with this, and hope you guys enjoyed. Also remember, if you, well, end show. There we go. If you want to follow me, you can follow me over at Anime and Catholicism. Type it pretty much on YouTube, Anime and Catholicism. You're pretty much going to find this, or Anime and Catholic, it'll probably get there. I'm still in the current stage of revitalizing this channel, really building it from the ground up. This is going to be a multiple year project, I would say. This is literally probably going to be one of my side vocations, I would say. Just because it's such a very niche kind of thing that really a lot of people haven't done. The real main issue behind this is that we also have the secular YouTube kind of pushing back, at least algorithmically, so that's why I'm going to try on Rumble as well, try to get stuff going there, really try to focus in onto the Catholic Church and its ministry as best as I can. Like, I don't have any formal teaching. Well, I went through RCIA, went through all this kind of other stuff, so I have a good place to bounce off from as a layperson. But anyway, hope you all enjoyed. It's been me, Quinlan. That's my actual name. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace and love until then.